In this video, I'm going to be showing you the top 5 places that we visited in Vietnam this summer and hopefully give you some great recommendations for your next trip. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. I got back from traveling for 3 months over the summer about a month ago, and now I'm just creating a load of content. I love travel. I really want to make more travel content, so that will be coming soon. And just quickly, if I refer to we in this video, because I'm probably going to do it a lot, I mean me and my boyfriend, because I went away to Vietnam with my boyfriend for a month. We had the same opinions pretty much on everywhere that we went, although I haven't actually checked this list with him if he would agree, but I feel like he is going to agree. I'm actually going to text him during this video, and at the end I'll let you know if he does agree. So we absolutely loved Vietnam. If you're planning a trip, I'm so jealous because I really want to go again. But we had spent 2 months in Thailand and then we spent a month in Vietnam, and we actually did end up agreeing that we preferred our experience in Vietnam to our experience in Thailand. And that's due to a lot of different factors, mainly because I was super ill in Thailand, but I have visited Thailand a few times before and I'd never been to Vietnam, so it was completely different, and it was so nice to see such a new culture and new architecture. So let's get straight into the list. At number 5 is Hanoi, which is the first place we visited. It's the capital city of Vietnam and it's built on the bank of the Red River. So like I said, Hanoi was the first place we visited, so seeing all the new French architecture and the buildings and everything like that was so exciting. Something we noticed straight away was how narrow the houses and buildings were. I think it's something I actually mentioned in my vlog, and so weirdly I found this while I was researching for this video about the different places, that the reason that the houses are so narrow is that property tax is based on the width of a building, and that was so fascinating to me because it's like it all makes sense why everything is so narrow. But I honestly felt like the fact that everything was so narrow just added to like the feel of the city. I don't know how to explain it really, but it was like really cool because it's something that we hadn't come across before. Something I absolutely loved about Hanoi were the lakes. There's so many lakes. Actually, it's known as the City of the Lakes by the locals, but Hanoi actually translates as City of Rivers because it is built by the Red River, and yeah, there are just so many lakes. And I just found it so peaceful. It's such a busy city, and then you go in like by the lakes and it's just so serene and nice, and you just feel like you're in like a spiritual haven. I don't even think I've used that word haven ever in my life, but that kind of makes sense in this context. As much as we enjoyed our week and a half in Hanoi, I would say that this is the first place we learn about the traffic and the noise in Vietnam. It's just something we weren't used to. The first day we got there, I mentioned it in my vlog, like the beeping, it's like every 5 seconds, like really loud honking, beeping. The drivers would just honk and beep at each other every few minutes. So there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise going on, and on the first and second day I was a bit like overwhelmed, thinking I don't know if like this is quite annoying. I don't know if I'm gonna get used to this, but you do, like after a couple days I kind of like didn't even hear it, you know, and you kind of blank a noise out. We also learned in Hanoi that you cannot walk on pavements. Pavements are not for pedestrians, pavements are for the motorcycles, which means that you have to walk in the road with the traffic, with the honking, and it can be quite stressful. That was just our experience. And obviously Hanoi is a city, it's a busy city, so that's to be expected. Just like Bangkok is super busy and there's a lot of traffic. The only other thing that is kind of a negative experience that we had in Hanoi, and I guess it could be said for the whole of Vietnam, is it was quite hard to see a lot of dogs and animals in cages. Dog meat is very common in Vietnam, and obviously that's something we're not used to because here in the UK, dogs are part of the family, they are pets. They are like our loved ones, so seeing so many dogs in cages and things is just something to bear in mind. It can be quite upsetting, so if you're going to Hanoi in Vietnam, just prepare yourself that you will see things like that. Number 4 is Da Nang. Oh my gosh, we loved Da Nang, and it seems like it's high up on the list out of, you know, like 4 out of 5, but it was still amazing. It's just the other places we visited were even more amazing somehow. But Da Nang is a coastal city in central Vietnam, and it's got sandy beaches and mountains. We stayed right by the beach for 2 weeks, and it was just so nice coming from Hanoi and then going to Da Nang, where it just was so much more quiet and chilled. Da Nang is a popular like holiday vacation destination for the Vietnamese people, and I can completely see why. It's so nice there. Before I visited Da Nang, I actually heard mixed reviews. Some people were saying they loved it, some people were saying they weren't keen, but our experience was completely positive. We loved Da Nang, we loved the sandy beaches, and we found one of our favorite Vietnamese restaurants in Da Nang. It was honestly the best Vietnamese food we had. I fell in love with Vietnamese food. Before I went to Vietnam, I'd never tried it before, and I tried quite a lot of Vietnamese cuisine and just loved it. And this place was so nice, the staff was so good. Honestly, I don't know how it didn't have a Michelin star. It 100% should have. So things I would recommend to do while you're in Da Nang is visit the famous Van Nuys Hills, which I did a video on. If you haven't seen that, go and check it out. That is a theme park, but it's up in the mountains and you have to get a cable car to different sections of the mountain. Super, super cool. Loved it. That was such a unique experience, and Da Nang is famous for Van Nuys Hills, so it's something you should definitely do if you're visiting. You should also visit the Dragon Bridge on the weekend. The dragon literally breathes out fire Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights, and I really enjoyed our evening. They have little puppet shows as well by the bridge. Da Nang is also not too far at all from Hoi An, which is why you have to go to Da Nang when you're visiting Vietnam, because you can then go on to Hoi An, which is higher up in my list. It's only a 45-minute drive, so I would 100% add Da Nang to your list. I think maybe 2 to 5 days is a good amount of time. We actually stayed there for 2 weeks, but that was because I was full-time working while I was there, and we wanted enough time to explore and also work. The hotel we stayed in were like, "You're our longest ever staying guests." We stayed for 2 weeks, and they took a picture with us because they were like, "You're literally, no one's ever stayed this long at our hotel." And we were so surprised. I thought 2 weeks is like a normal time to go somewhere, but I guess Vietnam is different because a lot of people backpack and explore the whole country, so you wouldn't necessarily stay for 2 weeks. But yeah, if I was going without work, I would say, to be honest, 2-3 days is enough to do everything. If you want more chilled and you want to like enjoy the beach for a couple of days, then I would say like 5 days is a good amount of time to spend in Da Nang. Number 3 is Ha Long. You've probably heard of Ha Long Bay. It has been the filming destination for so many movies. Kong Skull Island is like a notable movie that's been filmed there. Pan's been filmed there, a movie called Life, which I haven't actually seen, I don't think. If somewhere is a movie destination, it's for a reason, and that's why this is number 3 on my list, because it's so, so beautiful. Just a disclaimer, we only visited Ha Long for 1 day. It was a day trip, so my experience and opinions are solely based on that 1 day. But Ha Long is a World Heritage Site, and it's basically a scatter of islands topped with rainforests and just surrounded by emerald waters. It really is stunning. It's one of those places where you like look around and you feel like, is this a green screen? Because this just looks so surreal. And honestly, it's one of those places where any pictures or videos you take are just not going to reflect anything like what you see in real life in person. So we heard really bad things about Ha Long before we went. We heard it was so polluted, there was so much rubbish in the water, it was so overcrowded. First of all, the rubbish in the water, there was none. We didn't see any rubbish or pollution, so I don't know whether they did a big cleanup, because I did see a few TikToks showing that there was a lot of rubbish in the water. They must have sorted that problem out, because that was not an issue when we went. The overcrowded, 100% was an issue, and it is a shame. Obviously, anywhere that beautiful is going to be somewhere that a lot of people want to visit, and that is completely understandable. We were tourists ourselves, we wanted to go, but it's a shame there isn't some sort of limit on how many people can visit in one go. Like, we visited an island, and the whole island, I'll insert footage here, but it was just like more packed than I've ever seen a place ever from tourism, because it kind of takes away from the experience of how beautiful the place is. It does like leave a bad taste in your mouth. I don't know if that's the saying, but yeah, you get the gist. It's stunning, but that's why it is my number 3. Well, purely because we only visited for 1 day, and 2, because of just how overcrowded it really was. Number 2 is Hoi An. Hoi An is also a city on the central coast of Vietnam, and we already heard absolute rave reviews about Hoi An before we visited, and it did not let us down. If you are going to Vietnam and you only have a certain amount of time, honestly, Hoi An has to be on your list. It has to be. It's one of the most stunning, surreal places I've ever visited in my life. You feel like you're in some sort of Disney fairy tale, and it's not like fake, like as if it's a theme park, but it feels like a theme park in such an authentic, amazing way. Hoi An is a well-preserved ancient town with wooden shop houses, temples, French architecture, and so many lanterns. In the day, it's beautiful anyway, but when the lanterns light up at night, oh, guys, I can't even explain. Like, honestly, it's one of those moments where you look around and you're like, is this real? Like, I did not know a place like this existed, genuinely. And honestly, people were like, why aren't you staying in Hoi An? You should have stayed. If I could go back, we 100% would have done a week in Da Nang and then stayed in Hoi An for a week. We just found the shopkeepers and locals in Hoi An so friendly. I mean, people in the whole of Vietnam are so friendly, but Hoi An just had something so special about it. And one of the things I loved about Hoi An is that they don't allow cars, they only allow mopeds to drive on the roads of the ancient part of Hoi An. And that made it so much easier to walk around, and you didn't have to stress about getting run over every 2 minutes. The only negative thing from our experience of Hoi An was the banh mi, which was such a shame because Hoi An is supposed to be the capital of banh mi. And if you don't know what banh mi is, it's a famous Vietnamese sandwich. It's basically a baguette with meat and fresh herbs. And yeah, we got a banh mi in Hoi An and it wasn't very good at all. That's obviously not reflective on Hoi An, that is just the place we chose to eat. But my recommendation from that is to research before you go where to get the best banh mi, because that's something that we did not do, unfortunately. And on to number one, our number one place that we visited, which will probably come as no surprise, was Ha Giang, the Ha Giang region of Vietnam, which is a very northeast region of Vietnam. It's very close to China. We joined a 3-night, 4-day Ha Giang motorcycle loop, which is a motorcycle tour that takes you through all the mountains, the winding roads, the villages, the towns. It was the best experience of my life, hands down. There were genuinely multiple moments where I was looking around with tears in my eyes, just thinking like, how is this life right now? Like, how am I here? How do I get to do this? How do I get to see this? This is the most amazing experience I've ever had in my life. And I came back and literally told all my friends and family, if you go to Vietnam, you have to do the Ha Giang loop. It's not for everyone. It is very adventurous. You know, you're on a motorcycle loop on mountains. It comes with dangers, but we had drivers who drove the motorcycles, so we didn't have to drive them. They're locals, they're called easy riders, and they were so safe. Going into the loop, I was honestly like a little bit anxious about it, but within day one, I felt so much better because the drivers were just so safe and they really took care of us. So in Ha Giang, we probably had some of the tastiest Vietnamese food we had on the whole trip. We were getting cooked for in local homes and homestays in villages, and this food was unlike anything I've ever tasted. It was so delicious. We stayed a couple of nights in a town called Dong Van, which was a really cool experience because it was so different to Hanoi, where we'd come from. It was really traditional Vietnamese culture, and the people were just so welcoming. You'd think Vietnamese people that are living in their villages and having people come through all day, every day on motorcycles, like gawking at them, you think they would be a bit hostile. And for them to be so welcoming and friendly just speaks volumes about the Vietnamese people and their culture, because they are the friendliest, kindest people. And we would drive through villages and the kids were so happy and they would wave, and you'd see people washing in the rivers and the streams. I've just never seen anything like it, and it was just so, one, eye-opening, and two, just like breathtakingly beautiful, honestly. It also kind of says it all that on the first day it rained the entire day and we got soaked before we put our waterproofs on. And even though it was pouring down with rain and I was soaked and my shoes were soaked and my feet were wet, it was still one of the best days of the entire trip for me, because it was like, how is this real life? And like the beauty of the landscape and everything just takes away from anything bad or negative in your life. Another amazing thing about Ha Giang is how cheap it is. I got a pint of beer for about 70 pence. We had the best massages of our lives in Dong Van for £6 an hour. We obviously tipped a lot more than that because it was so well deserved, but it kind of just gives you an idea of how cheap it is. And yeah, I would say if you are a tourist and you're going on the Ha Giang loop, definitely tip a lot, because, you know, we can afford it and they are the kindest, most hardworking people. I also loved how much cooler it was in the mountains. Like, I really struggled with the humidity on the whole trip, and I think it didn't help with me feeling ill. And going up into the mountains, it was so refreshing, it was so cool. The one thing I would say about the Ha Giang loop is that if you're not very mobile, it may not be the experience for you, unfortunately, because I mean, you probably can book trips that don't require a lot of walking, but for our trip we did a couple of hikes. We hiked to the Chinese border, which was quite a climb. I really struggled, and they do say that if you're not mobile or you have heart problems or anything like that, it's not really for you. And also being on the motorcycles all day, the achiest we've ever been, ever. My whole body was just in so much pain, but it's worth it. So if you're going on the Giang loop and you're worried about that, that was something I was worried about, but you get through it and it's well worth it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed hearing about all my recommendations from our experience in Vietnam. Unfortunately, we didn't get time to visit Ho Chi Minh City, but I did hear that you can kind of decide between Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh because they are both cities. And overall, the feedback I heard from a lot of people we spoke to there that had visited Ho Chi said that they preferred Hanoi. I text Kiri about whether he would agree with my list, and he actually doesn't. There's something he would swap. He said swap 4 and 3. So he would swap Da Nang with Halong. So he would put 5 Hanoi, 4 Halong, 3 Da Nang. So I put Da Nang at 4 and Halong at 3. But then I think he may be basing it on the fact that it was so busy in Halong rather than the actual like beauty of it. But yeah, Louise's rankings, Kiri's rankings. So yeah, but pretty much the same. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel and I will be back with more travel recommendations. I also want to film a similar video on where we visited in Thailand. Thanks for watching and I'll see you guys in the next video.